Hey, this is Jeff Livingston with Cognitive Path, and I'm here with Sanjeev Pulapaka, AWS Worldwide Public Sector Principal Solutions Architect. How are you, sir?
Doing good, thank you, Jeff.
Good. Are you enjoying this fall weather? It's really beautiful right now.
Fantastic, and can't ask for anything better right now. Especially if you're a fan of sports and running like you are.
Yes, it was a pretty nice weekend for runners. Well, look, obviously we're in D.C. and it's a big government town. You know this. And I know that you guys are very focused on AI and ML, and you're the single-threaded leader in that space. And your public sector group, obviously state, local, federal, but you're civil, right? And that's a huge part of the federal government scene here. Can you discuss some of the top issues facing civilian agencies in the federal government?
Yeah, so basically it's a continuance of the previous iterations. The government is always trying to do more for the citizens. And it's getting more challenges because now we have a lot more data. And you can use the data a lot more better, and there's more information that can be given, and the citizens also want more information with this day and age. But that's the challenge for the government. How do you react to this information age where people want information very quickly, and the citizens also want the same. They have the same expectations. So that's the challenge. How do you do that? But how do you do it in a secure manner? So you're not giving false information first of all, and you give it securely.
Right. It's funny when we consider all the possibilities with what we can do with data for civilians, it's really awesome. But then the whole privacy and security thing, it's like a jump scare playing into the October theme of Halloween here a little bit.
Right.
So how do you handle all this for federal agencies? Because I feel like for a federal agency, it's even more important to protect taxpayer data than it would be for a consumer brand.
Yeah, so it's using some of these architectures and solutions that are pretty much aligned with the agile approach. So basically, you're agile in your approach, but at the same time, you don't compromise on your security. So doing a lot of things in parallel, for example, reducing bottlenecks, using AI, machine learning to improve processes. So those are some of the techniques that you can use, and that's why like the topic of the day, machine learning, AI, has gotten so much of attention because it's going to help agencies get to the next level.
Yeah, 100%. I have so many questions for you, but there is one I definitely want to ask first, which is when we're considering this context, obviously you guys are doing real work, right? And you're with civilian agencies at the forefront of AI. Do you have any use cases you can share that would be of interest to folks here?
Yeah, there's just a lot of them. Let's take, for example, in the research space, right? There's a lot of a focus on trying to use and figure out how to access data. So basically, there's a lot of data locked up in various spaces throughout the government, right? And the researchers are trying to figure out, okay, there's so much of data. How do I use that information effectively? So how do I, for example, summarize some of that information so I can get the key abstracts out so that it saves a lot of time, right? Or for example, if I want to do some analytics in some explorations and variations of the various scenarios that are encountered in research, how do you do that? How do you create synthetic data that I can use for experimentation? So that's in the research side. So the other side is the more common use case that you can see with Gen AI is chatbots. Right. So chatbots, search, accelerated search, where some agencies are saying, hey, if I as an employee want to access some information, it shouldn't be so hard. So let's say I'm looking for some help in IT, right? I want to get my network fixed. Right now you have to go to some website, navigate all over the place, right? And then you have to find that, but it's hard to find it. So instead of that, I can just give you an easy to use interface where I just enter the information and it tells me, hey, this is what you want, and then it goes forward from there. So various use cases are there, but summarization of data, chatbots, search, and analysis. So those are some of the key ones, right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah. It's really interesting. And chatbots have definitely been at the forefront of the generative movement as we've moved into this next generation of chatbots. One thing that happened after ChatGPT launched was obviously the federal government responded pretty quickly, I would say, within a year with some significant policy from the Biden administration. Specifically, one of the biggest aspects of that was the chief AI officer, right?
Yes,
And there was
yeah.
a mad scramble to hire chief
Yep.
AI officers across every agency.
Right.
And now these guys are starting to, these ladies as well, are now in place in most agencies.
Yeah.
And they're starting to get their feet underneath of them. How's it working out in your mind? How's the chief AI officer impacting civilian agencies?
No, I think it's a great move, right? Because, again, you have to be very careful, right? You don't want to, it's the government. You're working for the citizens, and you don't want to be in a position where you end up giving wrong information or you're compromising the security of the country in any way. So it's a good preemptive move to have that. There will be the focus, right? They will be able to, also the thought is they'll be able to discuss with each other. They'll be able to collaborate to leverage best practices.
Right.
So it's a really good move. And the key is that, the chief AI officers should be able to come in. They're people who understand the agency and who can understand the processes and then figure out what's the right way to move AI, lay the focus on AI, move it forward without getting stuck with, too many of these obstacles. So it's a good driver, a good way to do that, yeah.
It's pretty interesting. Do you see them working with CIOs and CTOs? Like, how's that relationship working within the agency structure in your mind? How have you seen it commonly?
Yeah. Well, they work with CIO, no doubt. They will work with the tech folks, but more importantly, they work with the business folks,
Okay.
like the mission owners. Because a lot of the drive is coming from mission owners, right? A mission owner, for example, wants to use AI for some business purpose, right? And they're like, hey, I have this tool, I want to use it, right? And it's going to give me so many advantages. But that's where the chief AI officer comes in and says, okay, yeah, we'll make that happen, but how do you make it happen without compromising on all the security and ethics, etc. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, the next question's about culture. And my friend Greg Verdino and myself, we have a podcast, and we often talk about culture as being the hidden submarine that could tank an AI project, the one that most people don't want to talk about. And obviously with federal agencies, you have a workforce that's challenged from the standpoint of there aren't enough people usually. There's a lot of policy that they have to adhere to. There are a lot of rules and frameworks. How is culture impacting AI in the federal agency today?
I mean, it's a great question. So, like any other technology, anything new, right? People are resistant to, initially the thing is, I'm not sure about how it's going to affect my job, right? And will it make a difference? Will it impact me in some way? So that initial reluctance is there on one side of the coin, especially on the IT side, maybe more because they might be feeling that, hey, this is going to affect my job, right? So culturally, it's very important, and that's why the chief AI officer has got that role too. How do you translate that into effective trainings? How do you dispel this notion that this AI is going to be a problem, and how do you make sure that you take care of it, you implement it in a correct way, so it doesn't really impact people in a negative manner, right? So the other thing is about culture would be like training of not only on the people side, but also on the technical side, because there might be people who feel, hey, I'm not ready for this, right?
Right.
And it's surprising that a little bit of training can do a lot to change that. It's just like the cloud migration. Initially, there was so much reluctance. Now people are seeing the value slowly, so it's getting there. It's the same story here. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend. His name's Andre Yee. I don't know if you know him. He's one of the co-founders of Eloqua.
Yeah.
And Andre likes to talk about the generative AI impact on the larger AI sector as kind of like a meteor, right?
Yeah.
And we're still in that period where we're assessing the impacts. We really don't know what the larger picture is still. Speaking of federal agencies and the challenges that they face with their workforce, obviously not being able to fill seats is a huge issue. And I remember hearing I guess it's the General Printing Office, the Government Printing Office, talking about that they wanted to fill seats or not really replace, but fill some of that bandwidth constraint that they have by using AI to take care of rote tasks. How do you see AI assisting that talent gap, if you would?
Yeah, I mean, so for example, programming is a classic case, right? Like if you have, let's say that you're new to the cloud, right? And you want to create this, so we call it AWS Cloud Formation Template, which is nothing but a way to deploy some resources in AWS. It might be difficult for you in the beginning, right? So in that case, you can use these tools now that will create that cloud formation template for you, and that will help you grow, right? So it'll help you get off the battery in the beginning, and as you get more conversant, you'll start using that in a much better way. So it is definitely an accelerator, right? It can be used even for large scale implementation, transformation of code, for example. So from one language to another. So in terms of filling the seats or adding to the workforce, absolutely, it's a big tool to have. And just like any other technology, it's going to make you more productive, right? So that's the same story here. Yeah.
Makes sense. And I read one of your articles on the AWS blog, and you were talking about legacy technology.
Yeah.
And boy, if there's a place for legacy technology, it's the federal government. I mean, I think there are still mainframes around somewhere, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, you were writing about how AI can help organizations, agencies address those legacy technologies and evolve to meet the current environment. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, there is mainframes there, and there in a lot of organizations. Mainframes are there in a lot of organizations, and that may not necessarily be a bad thing. But some of that logic needs to be moved to newer, method of implementation, so it can be more flexible and agile. And that's how you see that some agencies are going to starting to move a lot of it, a lot of portions of these applications to the cloud, making it more modern, right? Using modern architectures. And like AI, machine learning, for example, Gen AI has this capability to actually understand that code, right, and take it from one type of code to another, right? It's able to transform that code and it's able to assist in that. And so what used to take a long time to manually do these things, it's going to be accelerated by these tools. So AI will help you in accelerating. I'm not saying that the people, the designing, all that would still need to be there, because a lot of it is to do with the design of the new solution, and that still needs a lot of work, right? But the actual implementation, moving from one type of technology or one type of language, let's say you got COBOL, right? Moving from COBOL to Java. We have tools in AWS that help you do that, for example. So that's how you can help you accelerate that. Yeah.
So I know Bedrock Knowledge Base is one of your core offerings. And I think one of the biggest challenges that everybody's facing with generative AI is obviously hallucination, particularly with the LLMs.
Right.
I like to make a joke a little bit, but if you were trained on Twitter or X or whatever it's called today, I think you would hallucinate too. But
Yeah.
all things aside, obviously there are challenges there. And
Yeah.
research augmented generation has been posited by many across the industry as an answer. But even when you do have a strong RAG implementation,
Yeah.
you still have hallucination. So how does Bedrock help?
Yeah, so so one is the technique, which is retrieval augmented generation RAG, right? That helps you reduce hallucination, but it doesn't mean that if you just implement it, it's going to work. You have to do a lot of design thing. There's a lot of situations. For example, there are documents that contain a lot of images and tables. How do you do that, right? And so Bedrock Knowledge Bases provides you with mechanisms to alleviate some of those issues. So it gives you methods to, for example, take those images and translate those into text, right? So you can actually read that image, translate it into text, and now you are able to read off that and answer questions, right? So those are the kind of things that we do, and we give it to you in a very easy to use manner. To your earlier point about training, right? It just makes it much faster to implement the whole workflow rather than you having to do it from scratch.
Right.
Yeah.
So somebody doesn't have to use a computer vision algorithm and train it to their particular types of content. You have it ready to go for them.
Yeah, so it uses foundation models, which are the algorithms, these are like the foundations of generative AI.
Sure.
And so that's what it uses underneath, and the model is able to read that image, translate it into text. So those are the different types of things that you can do with Bedrock that allows you to accelerate these RAG implementations and control the output, right? And you also have abilities to filter and protect the output so that you only see the information that you want, right? So.
Very good. And before we break, I'm asking everybody this question just as a nice way to end the interview.
Yeah.
What's your favorite AI app that you think people need to know about?
Oh, without a doubt, is Amazon Bedrock. I'll just give you that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very
Yes.
good,
Yeah.
Sanjeev.
All right.
It's a pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate your
Jeff.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.